Hello, welcome back to WisdomAcademyPH. So today, we will discuss about the limits and continuity of trigonometric functions. So this lesson will be the uh, seventh video and the last video of our limits and continuity series. So let's start. So before we discuss about the limits and continuity of trigonometric functions, let us first discuss about the squeeze theorem. So, squeeze theorem states that if f of x, g of x, and h of x are defined for an open interval I containing a except possibly at a, and f of x is less than or equal to g of x, and g of x is less than or equal to h of x for the interval I, and the limit of f of x as x approaches a is equal to the limit of h of x as x approaches a, then the limit of g of x is equals to a. So, ang ibig sabihin lang niyan, kung meron tayong function na for an interval, for example, this is the interval I. If meron tayong function na between dalawa pang functions na h of x and f of x, let's say g of x yung function na yun. So, kung yung limit ni h of x at a certain point is equals to the limit of f of x on a certain point, then the limit of g of x on that point will be equal to their limits. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, pare-pareho sila ng maging limit on a certain point kasi in between sila each other. So, yun lang yung sinasabi ng squeeze theorem. So, let's have some examples. So, suppose f of x is equals to 4 minus 3 ceiling of x over x minus 1. So, let us find the limit of f of x as x approaches negative infinity. If we will try to solve this using direct substitution, hindi natin siya masasolve kasi di natin alam yung value ni ceiling of negative infinity. So, we will try to use squeeze theorem para masolve to. First, let us have the ceiling function. So, alam natin na yung ceiling of x will always be between the input x and x plus 1. Paano natin nasabi to? For example, yung let x is equals to 4.001. So, x plus 1. So, ceiling of x will be equal to 5. Then, x plus 1 will be equal to 5.001. So, alam natin na yung ceiling of x will always be between x and x plus 1. Okay? So, ayan. So, ngayon, paano natin magagamit to para ma-solve yung limit nitong f of x? So, ang gagawin natin, itatry natin na ma-convert tong ceiling ni x papunta sa function na f of x. So, first, multiply muna natin lahat by negative 3. So, may iba yung direction nung inequality natin since nag-multiply tayo ng negative number. So, next, mag-add tayo on all sides by 4 para makuha yung numerator natin na 4 minus 3 ceiling of x. So, lastly, magde-divide tayo on all sides by x minus 1. So, ano ba yung sign nitong x minus 1? Paano natin malalaman kung mag-flip ba yung inequalities natin? So, malalaman natin yung sign na x minus 1 by looking at yung limit na hinahanap natin. Since hinahanap natin is limit as x approaches negative infinity, so we can say na yung denominator natin ay isang negative value. Since negative infinity minus 1 is negative. So, mag-flip uli yung sign natin. Ayan. So, now, we have our inequality. So, now, pwede natin hanapin yung limit nito and limit nito. And if equal yung limit nila, ibig sabihin, yun din yung limit nito na nasa gitna. So, let us find that. Ayan. So, first, hanapin muna natin yung limit nung left side. So, substituting negative infinity dito, negative 3 times negative infinity over infinity will be equal to infinity over infinity. So, since it is an indeterminate form, magmamanipulate muna tayo ng expression natin. So we multiply the numerator and denominator by the leading term. So, multiplying the numerator and denominator, we will have, so getting its limit as x approaches negative infinity, we will get 0 minus 3 over 1 minus 0, which will be equal to negative 3. So, we will do the same for the limit of x on this other equation. We multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the leading term. So directly substituting negative infinity, this will become 0 minus 3 over 1 minus 0, which will also become negative 3. And since the limit of this side is equal to the limit of this side, then the limit of f of x as x approaches negative infinity will also be equal to negative 3. Seeing its function, so ito yung 1 minus 3x over x minus 1. This one yung 4 minus 3x over x minus 1. And yung nasa gitna, si f of x. Nakikita natin na as x approaches negative infinity, yung value niya ay papunta sa negative 3. So, this graph confirms this limit. Okay. Other example, so suppose f of x equals to this function, so we will find the limit of f of x as x approaches positive infinity. So, kung itatry natin yung direct substitution, hindi rin natin makukuha yung sagot dahil sign of positive infinity, hindi natin alam yung sagot yan dahil yung sine function, yung graph niya is periodic lang, and as the sine function approaches infinity, hindi natin alam kung saan siya nag-a-approach. So, we can find the solution for this kinds of function using squeeze theorem. So, we know that sine 8x will be between 1 and negative 1. Since yung graph ng sine functions, yung maximum values nila will always be equal to 1 and negative 1. Okay? So, since minus sign yung nandito sa sign, so multiply lang natin siya by negative 1. So, this will just be, then we add x squared to all sides. So, then we divide all sides by 4x squared minus 1. So, mag-iiba ba yung sign natin dito? Since x is approaching positive infinity, so positive infinity squared times 4 minus 1, positive infinity pa rin. So, positive number siya. So, hindi mag-iiba yung sign natin. Sorry, ano pala to? Flip. Ayan. So, now, nakakuha na tayo ng dalawang function wherein x squared minus sine 8x over 4x squared minus 1 is between. Ayan. So, ngayon, hanapin natin yung limits nitong dalawang function na to para makuha natin kung ano yung magiging limit nitong f of x kung equal yung makukuha nating limit. Okay? So, first, let us find the limit of x squared minus 1 over 4x squared minus 1 as x approaches positive infinity. Directly substituting, makukuha lang tayo ng infinity over infinity. So, kailangan natin i-manipulate yung equation by multiplying both sides by the leading term. So, by multiplying the numerator and the denominator, we will get, directly substituting positive infinity, this will be 1 minus 0 over 4 minus 0 is equals to 1/4. So, getting the same from the other side, so limit x approaches positive infinity, x squared plus 1, 4x squared minus 1. This will be equal to, so multiply only both sides by 1 over x squared. So this will be 1 plus 0 over 4 minus 0 is equals to 1/4. And since their limit is equal, we can say na yung limit ng gitnang function will also be equal to 1/4, which is f of x. Ayan. So another example. So let us find the limit of this function as x approaches 0 from the left. So kung itatry uli natin yung direct substitution, so makakuha tayo dito ng cos of 1 over 0 minus, which is cosine of negative infinity. And again, hindi natin makukuha yung value nito. So, we will use the same technique. So, cosine 1 over x will be between 1 and negative 1. And so, since we will multiply all sides by x, so since x is less than 0, mag-flip yung sign natin. Then we multiply all sides by negative 1, so mag-flip uli yung sign. Then, mag-add tayo to all sides by x squared. Okay. So, this will be our inequality. Ayan. So, solving this, we will find the limit of x squared plus x as x approaches 0 from the left. So, dito, makuha lang natin is 0. And for the other one, limit as x approaches 0 from the left, x squared minus x, this will be equal to 0 lang din. So, since equal yung limit netong function na pinaggigitnaan ni f of x, so the limit of f of x as x approaches 0 will also be equal to 0. So, ayan siya. By squeeze theorem. Ayan. So, now we will discuss further how to get the limits and continuity of trigonometric functions. So, para makapag-solve ng limits and continuity of trigonometric functions, kailangan lang natin na maalala tong theorems na to. So first, limit of sine x over x as x approaches 0 is equals to 1. So, if itry natin yung direct substitution, makakuha tayo ng indeterminate form dito na 0 over 0. Pero, using this theorem, equal siya sa 1. This can be proved using squeeze theorem. Pero, hindi ko na siya i-discuss. Ito naman, limit of 1 minus cosine x over x as x approaches 0 is equal to 0. Ayan. So, itong dalawa na to could be used to solve the limits of trigonometric functions. And lastly, trigonometric functions are continuous on their respective domain. So if hanapin lang natin yung domain ng isang trigonometric function and dun lang siya magiging continuous. Okay, so equivalent din tong limit of sine x over x as x approaches 0 sa limit of x over sine x as x approaches 0. Okay, so first examples. So, sa trigonometric functions, gagana pa rin syempre yung technique natin na direct substitution kapag pwede naman. So, by direct substitution, isa-solve natin to. So, 2 pi times cosine 2 pi will be equal to 2 pi times 1 is equals to 2 pi. So, ganun din for the second example. So, direct substitution lang din. So, this will be equal to the sine of 1 minus cosine 2 times pi over 2 over 2. This will be equal to sine of 1 minus negative 1 over 2, which will be equal to sine of 1. Lastly, we will get the limit of x over 2 from the right of tangent x. So, by directly substituting pi over 2, tangent pi over 2 is undefined. So, hindi natin mas-solve to agad-agad by direct substitution. So, ang gagawin natin is, sulat natin si tangent to its equivalent form, sine x over cosine x. Directly substituting, so, sine pi over 2 will be equal to 1, and cosine pi over 2 will be equal to 0. Pero, from the right of pi over 2, so, if maalala natin yung trigonometric circle, so this will be 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. Ito si cosine. Yung y-axis si sine. Ayan. So, if less than pi over 2, positive si cosine. So, greater than pi over 2, magiging negative na si cosine. So, ito ay 0 minus. So, magiging equivalent siya sa negative infinity. Okay. So, for another example, so, we will solve the limit as x approaches 0 of sine 3x over x. So, remember yung theorem natin na limit of sine x over x as x approaches 0 is equals to 1. So, paano natin to i-apply dito? Kailangan lang natin na itugma yung nasa denominator niya sa nasa loob ng sine. So, to do that, kailangan i-multiply natin both the numerator and the denominator by 3. So, sine 3x over 3x, equivalent din siya dun sa theorem natin kanina, which will be equal to 1 times 3 is equals to 3. Okay? Ayan. So, kapag mga gantong forms, ang goal lang natin ay makakuha ng value sa denominator na similar sa nasa loob ng sine. Okay? Okay, so ganun ulit. We will find the limit of this function as x approaches 1. So, by direct substitution, so makakuha tayo dito ng sine 1 minus 1, which is equals to 0. So, maging 0 lang yung numerator. And 1 plus 2 minus 3 is equals to 0. So, 0 over 0 siya. So, kailangan pa natin siya i-manipulate para hindi na makuha yung indeterminate form. So, limit as x approaches 1. So, kapag sana ngayon, nasasanay na kayo na kapag merong polynomial function, ifa-factor out natin sila. Okay? Then, hiwalay natin si sine 1 minus x and 1 minus x dito. And since nag-multiply tayo ng negative 1 dito, mag-multiply din tayo ng negative 1 sa x plus 3. So, ayan. So, hindi kailangan lagi na limit of x approaches 0 yung theorem na pinakita natin kanina. Since ang kailangan lang, pareho yung nasa loob ng sign sa denominator and magre-result siya sa 0 over 0. So, in this case, mag-apply yung theorem natin kanina. So, this will be equal to 1. Tapos, 2 times 1 over negative 1 minus 3, which will be equal to 2 over negative 4, negative 1 half. So, yun ang sagot natin dito. So, for our next example, so 2x times 1 minus cosine 4x all over 1 minus cosine squared 2x. So, hanapin natin yung limit nito as x approaches 0. So, kung maalala natin yung trigonometric identities, 1 minus cosine squared 2x, pwede natin siya equate to sine squared 2x. Then, the numerator will still be 2x times 1 minus cosine 4x. Ayan. So, dun sa isang theorem na involving 1 minus cosine x, same din yung gagawin natin. Similar dun sa ginagawa natin sa sine x over x. So, in this case, magmumultiply tayo both numerator and denominator by 4x. Ayan. Tapos, magmumultiply din tayo sa numerator by 2x since yung sa denominator natin, dalawa yung sine 2x since squared siya. So, dapat squared din yung 2x sa numerator natin. So, hiwalay natin sila. Remember na yung theorem natin kanina is also applicable by its reciprocal. Pero yung 1 minus cosine x, hindi siya applicable for the reciprocal. So, applicable siya kapag gantong form. Ayan. Tapos, tignan na lang natin yung mga natira. So, 2x, 2x. So, may natira ditong 4x. And dito naman, ginamit natin yung 4x lang. So, may natira na 2x. So, this will become 1 times 0 times 2 is equals to 0. So, yung limit nito as x approaches 0 is 0. We will try to find the limit of this function as x approaches 1. Okay? So, since ito, parang may form siya na 1 minus cosine x over x, yun yung i-goal natin. So, in denominator, again, i-factor out natin. So, ganun na agad. Paghiwalayin lang natin. This will become, ito, maging equivalent lang to 0. And ito, maging equivalent to sa infinity. So, we will have 0 times infinity dito. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan natin iiba yung approach natin to solve this problem. So, another way para isolve natin tong problem na to ay we can use trigonometric identities. So, we can multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 1 plus cosine x minus 1. So, yung conjugate lang nila nung numerator natin, x minus 1. So this will be equal to numerator, using trigonometric identity, we could equate it to sine squared x minus 1 over x minus 1 squared multiplied by 1 over 1 plus cosine x minus 1. Okay? So, this will become 1 times 1 plus cosine 0. This will be equal to 1 half. It's equals to 1 half. That's it. That's the limits and continuity of trigonometric functions. So, sana marami kayong natutunan. And again, this will be the last video for our limits and continuity series. And I hope na marami kayong natutunan. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for watching this video lecture made by Wisdom Academy PH. If you want to join our mission of providing high-quality educational videos for all Filipinos free of charge, then please consider supporting Wisdom Academy PH by contributing or donating to the following accounts. Kung interesado naman kayo maging parte ng aming organisasyon bilang isang volunteer educator upang makapagbahagi at makapagturo sa mga taong nangangailangan, then please proceed to this link. If you like this video, then please hit the thumbs up. And if you want more educational videos like this, then please subscribe to Wisdom Academy PH and hit the notification bell for more updates. Watch and learn. God bless, and see you on the next one.